Sydney has seen big changes in the last decade with its transport infrastructure. As New South Wales capital grows at a rapid rate, our connectivity to public transport as a way to get around is becoming more important. But we mustn't discount New South Wales' second biggest city, Newcastle, about 120 kilometres north of Sydney. Historically a major epicentre of steel and coal industries, and once even the epicentre of a 5.6 magnitude earthquake in 1989, the city has gone through major changes in the last 2 decades. The coal industry still reigns supreme, with Newcastle containing the largest coal exporting harbour in the world. However, the steel industry has all but gone, with demand slowing and foreign competition leading to the closure of the steelworks at the time of the new millennium. The effect of this major closure was felt throughout the city, particularly in Newcastle's CBD and surrounding inner city. Fast forward to 2014, the train line that connected Sydney to Newy began a major makeover, as the 3 stations leading into the CBD, being Wickham, Civic and Newcastle, were closed to be replaced by a light rail through the CBD. Over a decade since the closure of this part of the Newcastle line, the CBD is looking very different, and Newcastle itself is quickly becoming one of the most desirable cities to work and live, with population forecasted to grow by over 20% by 2046. I'll tackle the frustratingly long train commute from Sydney to Newcastle in a future video, but today I'll be looking at Newcastle's small and interesting light rail line and its possible future. The Newcastle light rail line begins at Newcastle Interchange train station, located just near the site of the former Wickham train station, which itself is now a maintenance depot for the light rail. The journey continues through the corridor of the old train line to Honeysuckle, before joining traffic at Hunter Street, travelling through the CBD past Civic, located next to the old Civic train station, now a visitor information centre, then on to Crown Street, before travelling down Scott Street and stopping at Queen's Wharf, past the heritage-listed Newcastle train station, and terminating at Scott Street further down at Newcastle Beach. Now before we go on, I have to say I know this light rail has been quite contentious for locals, but for me, comparing how the city looked 20 years ago to now, the CBD has really transformed. Along with the interesting mix of Newy's heritage buildings, many of which have been turned into housing, and some eclectic modern architecture, and now a light rail system that takes you through it all, the CBD is looking better than ever. There seems to be more people around, it's vibrant and full of character, and of course, once you get to Newcastle's coastline and beaches, they're some of the best on Australia's east coast. So, the people are coming, as I mentioned, and they need good transport connections. What does this light rail add to that demand? Well, not a whole lot. I will say it's a calm and neat way to travel through the city from the interchange. The vehicles themselves travel wire-free and charge up at each station via a raising pantograph on the tram connecting to an elevated charging bar. While this is a cool feature, it does mean the trams are stopped at stations for slightly longer than they should be for rapid commute standards. For those living and commuting along this corridor and fit enough, the general consensus is that riding a bike along this 2.7 kilometre distance is faster. For the less mobile among us, and of course the tourists and visitors to Newy, it's lovely and a great addition to the revitalisation of the CBD precinct. So how does a small, not entirely efficient system become commuter friendly and do more to connect this growing city? A summary report released by Transport for New South Wales in 2018 identified 4 priority corridors in the Newcastle region for investigation. They were Newcastle Interchange to John Hunter Hospital via Broadmeadow, Newcastle Interchange to Wallsend, Newcastle Interchange to Mayfield, and Newcastle Interchange to Charlestown. These 4 corridors were deemed important for their rate of population growth and economic benefits to a transit connection to the CBD. The report also identifies that private vehicle trips accounted for 89% of work commutes, in comparison to 68% in Sydney, and that without intervention and investment in good public transport, road congestion will increase as the population grows, meaning bus trips around Newcastle could also become less desirable if they get stuck in traffic. Interestingly, the report also reveals that a paltry 4% of work trips are through buses and trains, compared to 23% in Sydney. It correctly establishes that Newy's car dependency reflects the limitations of the bus network's low frequencies, and the train services along the intercity rail also a victim of low frequency, partly due to sharing a line with freight rail. This lack of competition means that Newy's car dependency could become a big problem in the not too distant future. The report found that the most likely extension to the network would be the connection to John Hunter Hospital via Broadmeadow. Although not the least expensive to build, it was the only corridor of the four to return a positive BCR, or benefit cost ratio. Unfortunately, this report also states that there is no urgency to extending the light rail, mentioning the economic appraisal and impact on road users during construction and decrease of road capacity for cars if built. Other factors, such as gradient issues, Newy is a hilly city, may also affect costs and construction challenges. I for one hope that this extension can be followed through. As we have seen in the past in our own cities, planning and building ahead of time presents great benefits, whereas biding time and waiting until things are bursting at the seams causes major headaches, particularly as costs continue to rise higher year on year. I would love to see all four of these corridors realised, along with a few extras that could really make Newy a connected and less car-dependent city, as it once was many years ago, until 1950, when its original and somewhat expansive tram network ceased operation. Backtrack's channel has made an excellent video about this, so check it out to see how Newy's wide leafy streets once were, and get an interesting history lesson too. I'm excited to see Newcastle grow and develop further over the next few years. If its recent transformation is anything to go by, we have hopefully some cool things to look forward to in this beautiful and eclectic city. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more content. And until next time, happy commuting!